أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد الله لطيف بعباده يرزق من يشاء وهو قوي العزيز بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري أنه قال عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فأتيته به وسرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولد الحسن عليه السلام قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوزي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولد الحسين عليه السلام قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه والسلام عليك يا من اختار الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب عليه السلام وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبو الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن أمي رسول الله. فقلت نعم، ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. فاقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي يا بزعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء فلم اكتملن جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. وأما بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن صالمهم وعدو لمن أعداه ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات، إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرض مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مزية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. فقال الأمين جبرائيل عليه السلام يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مزية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل عليه السلام معنا تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني برسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبين إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلا أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وفازت شيعتنا ورب الكعبة اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. فقال النبي الثاني يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني برسالة النجية ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبين وفيه محموم إلا وفرج الله همه إلهي آمين ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه إلهي آمين ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته إلهي آمين. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
بہت شکریہ بھائی، بہت بہت شکریہ بھائی. آج کی شب جو ہے 3 ربیع اول جو ہے معصوم قم کی شہادت سے منسوب ہے، تو اس کو سامنے رکھتے ہوئے 4 مصرے اور انتخاب کے ساتھ ایک سوز بآواز بلند صلوات پڑھ دیجئے.
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
مولا سفر میں مر گئی خمشیر مولا سفر میں مر گئی شمشیر آئی ہے کون اقربا میں یہاں پر بتائیے ہے کون اقربا میں یہاں پر بتائیے مولا مزار خواہر مضطر بنائیے مولا مزار خواہر مضطر بنائیے اپنی بہن کو ہاتھوں سے دفنا کے جائیے مولا سفر میں مر گئی. بابا سے بلند صلوات پڑھ دیجئے.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآلِ محمد. بارے دیگر صلوات. اللہم صلی علی محمد وآلِ محمد.
نکلی تھی گھر کو چھوڑ کے نوحہ کو نہ بہن نکلی تھی گھر کو چھوڑ کے نوحہ کو نہ بہن آتی تھی شہر سے ملنے کو بسد فغاں بہن ماں بین راہ ختم ہوئی نیم جاں بہن کس جا وطن ہے آپ کہاں اور کہاں بہن امام رضا مزار سے تشریف لائیے امام رضا مزار سے تشریف لائیے غربت زادہ بہن کا جنازہ اٹھائیے نکلی تھی گھر کو چھوڑ کے. باواز بلند صلوات پڑھ دیجئے. بہت بہت شکریہ بھائی, بہت بہت شکریہ.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآلِ محمد. اللہم صلی علی محمد وآلِ محمد.
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. بارگاہ عزت میں دعا گو ہیں باقی پنجتن پاک بتوسل قائم آل محمد علیہ السلام. جو مومنین اور مومنات یہاں موجود ہیں مجلس میں اور جو رستے میں یا جو کسی وجہ سے بھی نہیں آ پائیں گے, جو جہاں مومن و مومنات آباد ہیں دنیا بھر میں, پروردگار عالم پنجتن کے سطح میں سب کو اپنی زبان تحفظ اور آسانی عطا فرمائے, غم حسین کو فروغ عطا فرمائے, اور ہمارے مقامات مقدسہ کی حفاظت فرمائے، اور اس عزا کو جو نئی نسل ہے پروردگار ان کو یہ تمیز آئے کہ اس کو کس طرح سے آگے لے کر چلنا ہے۔ میں یہ دعا کروں گا۔ ایک اور انتہائی ادب سے میں گزارش کروں گا، میں اپنے چھوٹوں سے بھی بڑوں سے بھی ہاتھ جوڑ کے، کہ جن کی صحتیں صحیح ہیں وہ فرش عزا کی رونق بھریں، کرسیوں کی نہ۔ پلیز آپ لوگ آگے آگے بیٹھیں۔ دس از ایبسلیوٹلی رانگ کہ آپ لوگ صحیح، بچے بھی وہاں بیٹھے ہوئے، اپنے بچوں کو فرش عزا سے روشناس کروائیں تاکہ ان میں تاثیر پیدا ہو، کیونکہ جناب سیدہ بھی آ کر یہیں بیٹھتی ہیں۔ بیٹا کم فارورڈ اینڈ سٹ ہیئر، کم آن پلیز، تھینک یو۔ اللہم صلی علی محمد وعلی محمد، بارد گنار صلوات بابا سے بلند۔
اللہم صلی علی محمد وعلی محمد۔
دعائے زہرا کی تعبیر ہے عزاداری، دعائے زہرا کی تعبیر ہے عزاداری، بقائے اسوہ شبیر ہے عزاداری، کوئی یزید اسے ختم کر نہیں سکتا، کوئی یزید اسے ختم کر نہیں سکتا، عطائے زینب دلگیر ہے عزاداری، دعائے زہرا ہے۔ نعرہ صلوات بابا سے بلند۔ چار مصرے اور دامن عقل کو جو چاک نہیں کر سکتا، دامن عقل کو جو چاک نہیں کر سکتا، وہ کبھی نور کا ادراک نہیں کر سکتا، بغض حیدر کی نجاست ہے، نجاست ایسی، بغض حیدر کی نجاست ہے، نجاست ایسی، آب زمزم بھی جسے پاک نہیں کر سکتا، دامن عقل کو۔ فاتحہ۔ بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، الحمد للہ رب العالمین۔ اللہم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم۔ میری اگر کوئی بات بری لگی ہو، مرثیات شروع کرنے سے پہلے ہاتھ جوڑ کے معافی مانگتا ہوں، پلیز اس کو درگزر کیجیے گا۔ عزاداری کے لیے ہم لوگ پیدا ہوئے ہیں، شکر ہے کہ ہم کو پروردگار عالم نے ان گھرانوں میں پیدا کروایا کہ جہاں پر نام حسین لیا جاتا ہے فرش ادب پر. تو پلیز جسٹ اپالوجی ونس اگین اگر کسی کو میری بات بری لگی ہو. نعرہ صلوات بآواز بلند.
اللہم صلی علی محمد
جب چھٹ کے قید شام سے سجاد گھر چلے، رستے میں کربلا نے صدا دی کدھر چلے، دشت بلا میں چھوڑ کے لاشیں پدر چلے. عابد نہ چاہتے تھے کہ جائیں مگر چلے، پیغم دعا تھی طاقت ضبط فغاں رہے. صغرا ضرور پوچھے گی بابا کہاں رہے، رک رک کے سوچتے تھے اسے کیا بتائیں گے، کیسے کہیں گے بی بی اب اکبر نہ آئیں گے. تم بھی بھولا دو ہم بھی انہیں بھول جائیں گے، وقت آئے گا تو خود بھی تو بابا بلائیں گے، وقت آئے گا تو خود تمہیں بابا بلائیں گے. کہہ دیں ابھی رباب سے آگے نہ آئیے، بچی مچل رجائے کے اصغر کو لائیے. ام البنین پوچھیں گی اپنے جری کہا، کس شان سے لڑا سرے میدان علی، کہنا پڑے گا جنگ کا غازی کا کیا سب. ان کو تو صرف آب رسانی کا تھا خیر، اذن وقا ملا ہی کہاں اس دلیر کو، زنجیر سے امام نے جکڑا تھا شیر کو. مل جاتی اس جری کو اگر جنگ کی رضا، دم بھر میں فیصلہ تھا کل افواج شام کا. پانی گئے تھے لینے سو وہ بھی نہ مل سکا، مشکی ذا واپس آیا تو رنگی تھا جا بجا، وعدہ تھا بھر کے لانے کا پورا بھی کر دیا. مشکی زائے سکینہ میں خون اپنا بھر دیا. دیکھا جو یہ سکینہ نے آئے نہیں چچا، مشکی ذا واپس آیا ہے اور وہ بھی خون بھرا. یہ حادثہ کلیجے کا ناسور بن گیا. زندہ میں بھی چچا ہی کا دن رات ذکر تھا، زندہ میں بھی چچا ہی کا دن رات ذکر تھا. سمجھایا ہر طرح نہ مگر بے کلی گئی، آخر چچا کے پاس بھتیجی چلی سمجھایا ہر طرح نہ مگر بے کلی گئی آخر چچا کے پاس بھتیجی چلی گئی جب چھٹ کے قید شام سے
آواز بلند نعرہ سلوات.
I would now like to request Moulana Mirza Abbas to begin the Fazal Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Today's topic is the role of women and children in Karbala and how we can apply this in our daily lives. Par Muhammad wa ala Muhammad salawat.
رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله أوله بلا أول كان قبله وآخره بلا آخر يكون بعده الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا حبيبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعليه الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. قال إمام الصادق عليه السلام اللهم صل إن الله حرم وهو مكة وإن رسولا حرم وهو مدينة وعلي بن أبي طالب حرم وهو كوفة وأنا أهل بيت حرم وهو قوم. There's a narration that comes from the sixth Imam in regards to Hazrat Masum Qum. As just now we recited the Marsiya, may Allah accept the eulogy, the poetry of our brothers, that there is a haram for Allah which is known as Makkah. There is a haram for Amirul Mu'mineen which is Najaf and Kufa. There is a haram for the Prophet which is known as Medina. And we Ahl Bayt have a haram and that is Qum. And soon there will be a lady who will be buried, and whosoever does the ziyarat of her, the Jannat is wajib upon him or her. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. So, according to a narration tonight is also the martyrdom of Hazrat Masum Qum, and the topic is also related somehow towards women and their role in Karbala, women and children and their role in Karbala, and also the lessons that we could take from them. If you help me with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, we'll begin our discussion. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. When we look at the present civilization and the past civilizations as well, we have seen that women have played a major role in formation of these civilizations. I would rather say they have played, I would be critical enough to say that they are the major contributors for these civilizations to form and to exist. The reason I say that is because the essential qualities and the realities of feminine nature have the element of promoting and securing and preserving knowledge, science, whatsoever you may name it as a civilization that it contains. Because for that to preserve requires a subtle reality, requires some sort of latafat, as we say in Arabic and also in Farsi and Urdu as well. Latafat is very much needed. That subtle reality is needed for preservation of these things. Now, as we are peculiarly focusing upon the role of women in Karbala, there is the other side, or the hindsight of it, is also the role of women in Karbala in the killing of Imam Hussain, in the martyrdom of Imam Hussain as well. The same way in the preservation, which we are looking at more of a positive side to it. However, the whole of Karbala also happened due to the fact of women. Now, I will look at this argument which I am saying. We would like to go behind the scene of whole story of Karbala, what happened, to look at it for the reasons of it, the sources of it, and how the Ahl Bayt and Islam themselves have addressed it. Like I said, women played a major role, whether that be in preservation of it or whether that be in the destruction of it. As the Prophet, he himself have said that after me, the greatest test, the fitna, and that will destroy my sort of nation is women, which I'm afraid of, right? So you have that aspect as well, right? So, inshallah, with sort of the discussion, we'll try to point out to some references in history, what has taken place, and why do I, claim or say that it is actually the woman behind the whole situation of what happened in Karbala, for preserving it as well and to reaching to that situation as well. Help me with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So if you look at it, like I said, it's for fact, the major contributor. Women are major contributor. Nevertheless, we know that, men play a role as a leadership role in order to, to fight or to establish justice, to establish some sort of rule, so on and so forth. They have that responsibility to do so, but having said that, they themselves utilize women in order to do that. They themselves are pushed for that, and also they use women in order to do that. Now, they are the major contributors, women are the major contributors, and at the same time, they've been used and abused for, the establishment of taghut, for the establishment of sort of governance or governments that were sort of negative and brutal towards humanity. They've been abused and used. Today we do claim that there are equal rights, but at the same time we know that, this was in The Guardian, which I was reading, women still paid less than men out of 5 employers in Great Britain. 4 out of 5 employers, they pay less to women. Although the Western civilization talk about equality and women's rights, so on and so forth, but having said that, we have this reality as well. So this means that women are major contributors. At the same time, they have been abused the most, by men, right? And also, if you look at it, the whole issue of feminism itself, there was actually a joke I'll just mention in the margin. Well, what's the difference between feminism and a knife? I was just, watching something. Anybody? What's the difference? Yeah, you have there you go. Then they say knife has a point. Feminism and even after all of these movements that is out there, still, feminists, they are asking their rights from whom? From men. So they are asking their rights from men, right? And as a matter of fact, it's really men
who tends to be the protector and the caretaker of women. Yes, there is no doubt. In spirituality, women and men are equal, and on the other hand, women have an upper hand in terms of reaching nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala quicker in terms of their spirituality. Why? Because men tend to be more intellectual and calculative and rational rather than being emotional. But what is required as a medium, as a vehicle to reach God is more of an emotionality. The element of ishq, the element of love. Emotions are very important. That's why we find that so much power in the Masaib of Imam Hussaini alayhi salam. That has to do with the emotionality, which takes us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very quickly. As has been mentioned in the narratives, that a tear which is equal to the wing of a mosquito will put off the hellfire which is shed in the love of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, right? So that has the element of emotionality there, right? And women tend to be naturally emotional rather than having that intellectual. They are intellectual, but in terms of the calculation, they are not rational in that sense, right? So they have an upper hand in spirituality, and that's why we find that when it comes to how Islam honors women, whether that be Quran or the Prophet, we find that there are amazing narrations, right? The whole Quran, there's no Surah Rijal, but there is Surah Nisa, right? So this really shows that how valuable and how important women are in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet in the last khutbah in Ghadir, and also in Arafah, he did mention Inni tarikum fikum at-taqlain, but at the same time, he mentioned very peculiarly and particularly in regards to women. And he said that your women are amanat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are considered as a trust from Allah, right? And in the Quran, we find that the whole creation is considered as a trust from God to man, right? And that's why he's the Khalifa, right? It's a trust from Allah to man, to insan, to human beings, the whole creation. So we have to take care of it. So how we return this amana. So the Prophet also compared women as amana of God, as a trust from God to man. So we are the caretakers of it, right? Well, being a caretaker, being the bodyguard, puts them on a sort of higher level. What do we take care of? I'm the caretaker of this place. Why? Because this place is of a greater value. It's important. That's why I'm a caretaker. Amanat is something that is valuable in the eyes of Allah. So the Prophet is saying it's an amana. It's something that is valuable. And he mentioned this in this last khutbah. This really points out, yes, Prophet have mentioned this as well. You have the aspect of fitna as well. Women are the greatest fitna, that I'm afraid of you, and the most destructive fitna, that I'm afraid of you to come. And that's what we saw after that. The Prophet himself, there are narratives, what did you feed me? Who did that? The element of shahadat, that aspect, that riwayat, Sheikh Tijani in his book discusses, ask those who know as well, they are riwayat as well. The death of the Prophet, the death of Amirul Mu'mineen, the death of Imam Hassan Mushtaba, and also Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And who were behind all of this? They were no one but women. Joda to, Ibn Muljim was basically Hutam to, the Prophet, so on and so forth, right? So we always see that behind the scene you have this element as well. But at the same time, you have the aspect of that a women are considered to be that amana, because they are the major contributors, right? For something to reach its apex in terms of spirituality, and at the same time, in terms of its, evil nature as well. They play a major role, right? Now, they at the same time been abused, by men, even in we talk about liberal democracy today, but still we see that, how they've been abused in the West as well, unfortunately, how they are used to sell their products, so on and so forth. The point is because of their psychology, because of their nature, which have that element of their subtle nature, right? And the children the same way. Children have the same sort of tabiyat, same sort of substance, right? That feminine, soft substance to them, which attracts the soul. Man also have that, but the feminine sort of element of it, it has that powerful element of, basically affecting the heart and making us move, right? The whole element of sacrifice is very important to reflect upon the genders of everything. There's gender in everything. Even in when we speak, for example, Arabic or Urdu, Farsi doesn't have any gender as such, but even in Urdu as well, we have gender, kiski, kiska, for example. You know what I mean? Why? This has a gender to it. And nothing is out of gender. Everything has a gender. Even the qualities have that gender to it as well. Because in the cosmological reality, we find that you have the femininity and the masculinity, which kind of reflects the sovereignty, which is the jalal of Allah as a masculine nature, and the jamal of Allah as the femininity, the feminine nature. From there it comes out to the male and female, right? So the male have that masculinity, but as it has that jalali aspect, because it is jalal of Allah, which also contains the jamal within it, because there is no duality in God. There is only one God, one Allah, right? Which have the element of jalal and jamal in it. So therefore, an insan kamil, a perfect man, have the element of jalal and also jamal at the same time, right? So what I'm trying to say is that to look at the everything that is out there, whether those be attributes or physical things, or basically human beings as well, male and female, there's always an element of gender in it. For example, jealousy, that has an aspect of femininity to it. It is very subtle, right? So therefore that has that. So that's why we tend to find that women tend to have that element in them more compared to man. Although today there's all these imbalances been taking place. So for example, justice, establishment of justice, that's a masculine quality, right? So, or for example, sacrifice, humility, humbleness, that's more of a subtle, humble, one would say that, more of a feminine sort of quality to it, sacrificing. The whole Karbala is what? It's nothing but sacrifice in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in front of that Jalal. The Jamal in front of the Jalal is sacrificing, So therefore, when we look at, for instance, the whole, the story of Karbala, there's a lot of, emotionality, at play, which kind of tends to protect and preserve and save. The motherly qualities are there, which tend to protect and preserve and save, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well. So it's quite important to look at these, qualities that is out there. So therefore, when we look at, for example, to promote an ideology, to preserve an ideology, an idea, those qualities are required. Sacrifice once again is there. After that sacrifice, you have that humility, emotionality that comes from it, and it preserves that whole story of it, the whole, event of Karbala that has taken place. And that's why, always we should have that element of, that subtle element of poetry. Once again, that is also more of a feminine, artistic art sort of, side to it, which is Marsiya and Noha, which unfortunately is kind of, we are trying to, it's kind of deteriorating from our community. It's very important to have that aspect of art, of poetry, of Marsiya and Noha, which we always have. And we have to consciously preserve it, by learning Urdu or Farsi or Arabic, that needs to be preserved and appreciated. That's why the 8th Imam, would call Debal, who would recite poetry for Majalis. The 4th Imam would have poets, Farazdaq, to recite. So it is through this. Why? Because it has that feminine element to it. And it has a very emotional element to it, which will affect, the person who is listening and will move that person, It's not just the speech. It's not just, laws and rules that needs to be discussed, or philosophy. It must have that element of art. Look at this whole Hussainiya itself. There's so much of calligraphy, element of art there, which tend to have that, not that masculine aspect. Yes, the structure, the building maybe have that masculine aspect, but the beauty that is within is that feminine aspect to it, which is very much required to be there, right? So therefore, it's important for us to be conscious of these things. And when a human being is conscious of that, he balances that as well. For example, the Prophet, although he's Insan Kamil, he's the one who established justice, but he says that, like for example, to serve. It is a feminine quality to serve, right? But the Prophet says, the best among you, he who serves women, your wives, and I am the best because I serve the most. So Prophet have that masculine aspect to him, which is justice, but at the same time he is service. He gives service. He serves at home. The Prophet would divide the time after entering the house into 4 folds. Whatever time, for example, we reach home at 5 to 9, the time we sleep, for example, whatever 4 hours is there, he would divide into 4. He would say 1 hour for my ibadat, 1 hour for attending to the people if they have any questions or anything. But these days when we reach home, we are always with people, on the phone all the time. He asks something, they ask something, your idea, this forward, that forward, right? So he would divide that. He would have that aspect of the family, and then he would say that 1 hour for ibadat, another hour or whatever, exactly dividing it into 4 folds, 1 fold or as 1 fold for ibadat, 1 for the attending to the people as well while reaching home, then the other for the family, and 1 for himself. And he says that which is for myself, I give that to my family. Taking care of the family, maybe you got to mow the lawn, backyard, front, fixing this and that and the other, kids, so on and so forth. That's how the Prophet was. And he says, I'm the best. The best among you is the one who serves their family, their wife. And I'm the best because I serve the most, right? So that aspect of serving has that feminine aspect to it. It is serving, So now if I'm aware of that, then I will balance it. And an insan kamil, a perfect man, is the one who have both elements, who have the element of a feminine element to it and also the masculine element to it as well. And the same applies for the women as well. Right? Controlling. What is controlling? Is more of a masculine, isn't it? To control. Look how much our wives control us. The brother is agreeing with me. Everybody is laughing, right? Right? They control us, don't they? What time you're coming, what time you're going, why this, why that. That's a masculine aspect. Mothers, how controlling they are. That's why there's always an issue with the mother and wife. Both want to control. Do hukumatein nahi ho sakti bhai. So you have that element of control. That's a masculine. That's good. We have to appreciate that as well. It's natural. They have that. But if it's too much, then that's the problem. Aristotle, he talks about ethics, about akhlaq, and he says that you have to balance the ethic, the moral attributes, virtues that are there. If a person is shuja, is courageous, if that is imbalance, and if that person is just courageous only, he will be zalim. If he's only courageous, he will be zalim. He has to balance that with humbleness, with humility. If he's too humble, he'll be coward. Darpok rahega, he'll be like always, timid, right? So that needs to be balanced with the shujaat. So the humbleness is that the feminine aspect, and the shujaat is that masculine aspect. And then that's how we balance it, And as a matter of fact, the feminine aspect have more sort of, powerful element to it. And inshallah, when we'll discuss the essential reality of Siddiqa Kubra Fatimatu Zahra Salamul Alayha, later on, maybe in the Shahadat period, inshallah, we maybe will be able to look and discuss that. So, and we find that in our lives as well, especially, the experienced one, those who are married, they can tell, how much of a contribution that it is there in terms of man's thinking and planning, so on and so forth, that go behind that. For, as the Imam Khomeini says, that mard be daman zan be miraj miravad. Mard, a man goes to miraj from the daman of a woman. Imam Khomeini, right? Or in another saying, Imam Khomeini says, Quran insan saz hast, zan insan saz hast. Quran makes insan, makes a human being through Quran. And also women makes a human being too. Woman makes an insan too, right? So the women have that, sort of status in the eyes of Quran, Allah, and scholars, right? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And as Quran, as the Prophet, as those who understand, the nature of man, are fully aware of how powerful they are, and at the same time how weak they are in the sense of being abused. That's why, as they are aware of this nature, that's why we find that traditional societies, particularly Eastern traditional societies, come up with certain cultures, certain values, certain rules and regulation that dictates their community and society, in order that the preservation of that, in order that they be protected as well, and at the same time used in the best possible way, utilized in the best way for higher purposes, right? Then the whole issue of mahram, na mahram, the rules and regulations that we find, the cultural, the dress code itself, not just the spiritual, their spiritual understanding of them, but at the same time, and giving them that value and place in the society where the Jannah lies at the feet of the mother, so on and so forth. But at the same time, the physical appearance of them, how they should, the dress code, so on and so forth, and how they should appear. Why? Because, Islam is fully aware, or the traditional societies are aware of the effect that women could have and play in the success of being that to be good, or at the same time you have the element of being that to be evil as well, right? That's why you have this element of ahkam that coming into existence, right? Now, when the Prophet have said that women are the fitna, now one of the things that is very important is whenever we hear ayah or a hadith, we just have to take a step back, all of us, and just look at the different angle of it, different aspects of it, what it could be. It should not be only the work of the Maulwi or a Mujtahid or Mullah to really think and... No, all of us, Allah have given us that aql. We are the people of aql. We are the people, of intellect. Like, for example, the Prophet says it's a fitna. Now, if you look at the Quran, fitna is actually a test. The Prophet was sitting on the mimbar, and, the Hussaini, they entered the masjid, and the Imam was about to trip because of the clothing, the dress that he was wearing. The Prophet got down from the mimbar and picked them and brought them, and they sat next to the Prophet. And the Prophet said, they are the fitna, because fitna as a test, not fitna in the negative way, because it has that negative element to it, but fitna as a test. Fitna means a test. Not fitna in some of the Urdus, they say fitna means that it's something negative. No, right? But at the same time, when we read Surah Hashr, you have these two verses in the Quran which talks about, that, the Yazwaj and the family, aduwwun lakum, they are your enemy. But the best among you is the one who forgives. And the children, azwaj wa awlad, fitna, are fitna for you. Meaning that they are their test, right? So it's always, something that becomes a test is of value. Allah tests us with something which is dear. Allah tested the Qawm, Saleh with what? With that she-camel. That was a miracle. So something, Allah tests us with the Quran. Allah tests us with, the ni'mat that is giving, right? So when the Prophet is saying as a fitna, or the Quran is saying as a fitna, it means as a test. And test is always dear and of high value in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? He has given us life and He tests. Maut is a test, and maut is something that is very dear to Allah. A person who doesn't die will not go in Jannah, right? So it's very important in Dia. So it's a test. So azwaj and awlad, they are considered as a test for man. So when it is a test, that means he should be prepared and on guard, right? He should not be like, overconfident, right? He should always be on guard, Or kisi ko imtihan pasand nahi aata, We are always afraid of the test, aren't we? Right? And that's what is happening. If you reflect outside, the society have become that they are afraid of children and they are afraid of women. Right? And the Quran talks about them as a test as well. Right? So, that's why we find all of this abuse and harassments, and also how much of things are related towards the children, because they are the test. Sometimes they are the test in the sense that something goes wrong, they say something completely opposite, right? And the person gets in trouble, right? Because they don't understand. The same applies for the children as well, right? So, fitna, when the Prophet is saying, is also as a test, and Prophet is very concerned about that. And we have why Prophet was saying this. It was very important, and we have seen, right? For example, if you look at, the Battle of Uhud, the Battle of Uhud, what happened? They said that you are not allowed to come near us. The women, when they lost in Badr, they used to go out on the streets and dance and yell out loudly that men are not allowed to have any pleasure with us unless or until they go and get rid of Muhammad bin Abdullah in Medina. It was an open declaration of them. They are not allowed to come unless you go back and get rid of him and kill him. Then the Uhud happened. Who played that role? It's a woman who played that role, for the Uhud to happen. Uhud happened. And in Uhud, we saw what happened. There were 13 women. Amongst them, there was one of Hinda was there too. And what she did, we know, in relation to Hazrat Hamza, right? It was a woman once again, right? And then there was another lady, Umaira, his name was. They were losing the battle. But she picked up the flag and she recited poetry and sang and brought everybody back, and they changed the whole demographic of the war. Right? So it was once again that woman. Then in Khaybar as well, the sheep which was cooked, was filled with poison, was sent to the Prophet. Right? So we find continuously that, on outwardly speaking, you have this battle going on, people fighting with each other, but behind the scene, women are playing a major role for these battles to take place, for these battles to be successful as well. Right? So then you have, after, as we just mentioned, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussain, and also how they were martyred. Now let's go towards Karbala, as we are discussing Karbala. Now, if you look at, there are about 5 different categories of women in the Waqi Karbala, in the uprising of Karbala. One, those who have played marvelously spotless positive role for it to be there, to happen. And because Imam Hussain did not go alone, he took women and children, right? Women and children went. So there was that support of women and children, in regards to, for the whole event to happen. You see? Now, they played a very positive role. For it to happen, that support, Sayyidah Zainab, Salamullah alayha, she said, I'm going. She came and she was supportive and she was there, right? And even if you look at small little events that happen, wife of Zuhair did not want to go. It was wife. Zuhair also went for Hajj, returning back to Kufa. Imam Hussain also going towards Kufa. They were camping together. When Imam Hussain would camp, he would pack up and leave, because he does not want to see Imam Hussain. To the point that one day Imam Hussain went in his tent all of a sudden. Surprised him. Right? And then he still doesn't want to go. But what did the wife of Zuhair said? What's going on? What are you up to? It was wife of Habib ibn Mazahir, you hear this. These are very important stories that we don't focus. And it is very much required to be focused because, predominantly Eastern culture, Middle Eastern is male dominant. Everything is to do with, majalis, our mata, majlis, and, very in the marginally we kind of speak about, wife of Habib ibn Mazahir said this, or Zuhair said this, or Wahab, or the wife of Wahab, But they are, if you look at it, they are really the one who is pushing. If Zuhair wouldn't be there in Karbala, right? The Karbala is not just, the whole Karbala is of all Shaheed, all of the Shuhada. Is Imam Hussain there? Imam Hussain is the major, Sayyid al-Shuhada. He is the major orchestrator of the whole event of Karbala. He invited everybody. But the beauty of it is that he invited everybody. The night before he said, okay, go. They are after me. Why you invited in the first place? They say, okay, you are afraid of, of paradise, of hereafter? Okay, guarantee you, Jannah is for you. I take my bayat away. I will guarantee you shafaat of Rasulullah. Go. Right? But they stayed. Imam Hussain wanted those sort of fighters. And that was that isar and self-sacrifice. That no matter what, we are ready to sacrifice. Even Jannah is not important and valuable. Right? And who were behind them, who brought them there? It was Zuhair's wife, it was Wahab's mother, Wahab's wives, Kulsum, Rabab, Layla, all of them were there, right? And the children too, right? The children played a major role. Ono Muhammad, Hazrat Qasim. And they were tested, right? Imam Hussain said, everybody will die tomorrow. Hazrat Qasim wasn't given the permission. Delayed and delayed and delayed to the point he asked him, how do you find death? He said, sweeter than honey. If you wouldn't have delayed, this jumla wouldn't have come out, right? So he played a very major calculative role in who to send, when to send, how to send, right? So therefore, women, there's a category of women who played a very positive role for the Karbala to happen, also to be preserved. I mean, first and foremost is, if you go back, it's Siddiqa Kubra, who was the mother of Imam Hussain, right? And how she played role. She traveled with Imam Hussain till the Qatalgah, she was there supporting. Burair on the night says, I hear this lady crying every night in Karbala. Who is this? Imam Hussain says, my mother is here. She's crying. That's supportive role, right? She gave to Imam Hussain alayhi salam till Imam Hussain sacrificed. And then after that, it's Sayyidah Zainab takes over. So they played a major role for the success story of Karbala, for it to happen and also for it to be preserved up until now today, right? Like, for example, you used to hear, at the time of, Bani Abbas, how ziyarat wasn't possible. First, one hand is being chopped, severed, the other is severed. The mother, will say, no, still go. These are the mothers, wives and sisters who supported, right? Then the other categories were women, but they were under tyranny, under their husbands. They couldn't do anything. They really loved Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. They wanted to, and they did come out. They came out afterwards. They pushed them for burial, and the men for the Qiyam of Mukhtar and all that. It was women who kind of pushed them. So there are other categories where they were in supportive of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, of the event which, the preservation of Karbala, but they couldn't do anything because they were extremely suppressed, right? That's the other category of women that we find in history. The third categories were they were purely worldly, dunyavi. They would say that, it's nothing to do with, Hassan or Hussein or Ali, let them have that whatever fight they want to have. It's nothing to do with them. We want our worldly things. They were after that. In terms of their emotional support. Some of them, no, they took the hand of them who came to support Muslim, and they they took them back home, right? So we find these five categories. First, positive, very positive, supportive, spotless. Two, they were with the Ahl Bayt, but they couldn't because of the zulm of, the men that were there. Third one, they were those who, there was a group, those who couldn't really differentiate between haqq and batil as such. Because things have been so much sort of manipulated, particularly in Syria, they couldn't really differentiate much. They don't know what's happening. When the Ahl Bayt came to Sham, they would say, oh really? Oh, you are the family, of the Prophet? We don't know that, right? So there were a group of women like that as well. They couldn't differentiate. And the other thing, I'll mention this here in the margin, when Prophet is aware that women would have a fitna and they may kind of basically, what do you call, change the direction of the ummah by testing. Prophet was aware of that. And he mentioned that in Ghadir as well, right? And he gave another message in the Ghadir as well. If the governance was by a Masoom, this wouldn't have happened. This deviation wouldn't have happened, because what had happened, so many battles and the spread of Islam was something which was beyond imagination for the Arabs. And how to handle it. Different cultures, the Persians, the Turks, the Syrians, they were converting to Islam. Different cultures of the Iranian culture, the Turkish culture, when it comes to, for example, that they have women and so on and so forth. It was something new to them. And they all, these kings and the Khulafa, they got indulged with that. There was this person, one would kind of be amazed that he was from Bani Umayyah, Walid ibn Abdul Malik. He was the governor or Khalifa in Syria, in Sham. And he was extremely in love with some sort of lady, and he drank all night, and he was in a state of intoxication when the azan of Fajr was said. This is in the history. When the azan of Fajr was said, he said that I have promised that my mashuqa, that lady would lead the prayers. So she went and led the Fajr prayer by wearing clothes of a man. Right? There was this person, Abdul Rahman ibn Abi Ammar, who was known to be the most pious person in Medina. The most, zahid, ascetic, abid in Medina. But he was in love with a lady who is known as Salama, who used to sing in Medina. This is at the time of the fourth Imam. Look how much the community and the society, Muslim society, have become. That in Medina, a person who is known as to be the most pious is in love with a singer. And when they say that Medina, when she left for Sham, people came out crying, parting farewell to her in Medina. There was another lady whose name was Jamila. She used to sing awaz. She used to sing. She was a singer as well. So when she was in Medina, when she went to Makkah for Hajj, people came for part farewell to her in Medina. And when she came back, people came to welcome her as well. And she was known as one of the best singers in Medina. I mean, one may think that this is surprising. How can that be? Come on. When was Imam Hussain martyred? In which month? Muharram. In Muharram, the battle is haram, even the time of Jahiliyyah. But they fought in Muharram. Right? Okay. Who was killed? The grandson of the Prophet, who is Rahmatul lil Alameen. And when he was killed, what they were saying? Allahu Akbar. It's like even the Jahiliyyah, Arabs don't used to fight in Muharram. And you are fighting the grandson of the Prophet and you are killing him. And at the same time, when you are killing him, you're saying Allahu Akbar. You can imagine what sort of society the Muslims have been at that time. So all of these things which we are talking about, that, they were singing and dancing, and, this is how the Bani Umayyah were in terms of the Khulafa, and the person who is the most pious known to be is like that. It's not surprising. That's how it has become. Right? So what I was saying in the margin was that the Prophet was aware of it. If the control was in the hands of a Masoom and the Khilafat would have been with Ali ibn Abi Talib, then the things would be very different. Because Prophet was balancing it. Prophet knew how to take care of it. But these people, these Khulafa, when they started spreading, they couldn't really control. And that's one of the downfall of the Islamic civilization and the Islamic empires because of that. If you look at in India and Mughals and so on and so forth, what happened? Women and dance and drinking, all of these things came in. They were the most powerful. They expanded so much from Spain to whatnot, right? But what happened? They lost everything. Why did they lose everything? Because of women, because of dancing, because of drinking. All of these kings, they got into that, right? So why that happened? Because of the leadership. Because of the leadership. The leaders were not guiding them. The leaders were not the role models for them. If the Masumin were the role model, if the Prophet was the role model, things were different. If Amirul Mu'min was the role model, it was the same thing. That is why, so there were a group of people who couldn't really differentiate between Haqq and Batil. They did not know anything. Even if you look at, for example, Wahab and the mother of Wahab coming in, they are in a village, they don't know. Imam Hussaini himself introduced himself to them and they accepted it, right? Because it's about, Islam has spread, but in terms of the wilayat and the understanding, why Amirul Mu'min was quiet? Because there was nothing other than that, right? There was nothing other than that. If Imam Ali would have, for example, fought the whole message of Quran, and that is why Imam Hussain had to sacrifice so much in order to preserve Islam. He has to give his life away in that way, in that fashion, in order to preserve Islam. So the third categories were like that. So first, they were very good. The second, they couldn't do anything. The third, they have no clue at all. The fourth were, they were just after the dunya, they knew, but they had nothing to do with it. And the fifth were, no, they kind of pushed and forced them not to go to, for helping Imam Hussain or Muslim ibn Hussaja, so on and so forth. So we have this, different categories we find in Karbala, right? Not just the preservation as well, because we said that the discussion will be in regards to the preservation, but we have to look at the other side as well. Why it did really happen. Now, the other thing, when we look at those people who are stopping, very clearly, Hazrat Zainab, Kulthum, in Khitabat, I'm not going to go through. Imam Hussain on the day of Ashura itself, worshippers of women, worshippers of slave girls. That's how Imam Hussain spoke to them, right? They were after women, they were after slave girls. That's why you have come here. The illegitimate children. They were illegitimate children, right? Imagine if the Muslim community, society have become like that after the Prophet, where Jamila goes, everybody is, crying and dancing and, music have become like that, right? That's how they have become. So what do you expect, right? Some of the narrative says that during the time of Bani Umayyah, the culture, the Arab culture was very similar to the culture of the Jahiliyyah, that women there were no limitation, there were no restrictions for them. They would openly invite, right? It has become like that, Bani Umayyah's time. So it reached to that level because of something, right? Right. So therefore, Imam Hussain have to sacrifice. And he clearly mentioned that you guys are illegitimate. That's why you are killing. The children who came to kill Imam Hussain were there. Now, one of the topics that we have in the future is Imam Hussain and the 12th Imam. If you look at the riwayat, you would find that those who are against the 12th Imam, they are all illegitimate children. Right? So that means that inshallah we'll discuss a bit more detail that the ashab of Imam Hussain and the ashab of Imam Zaman should have the same qualities. Right? And that is why we have the remembrance of Imam Hussain over and over again, the ashab of Imam Hussain. so that we acquire those qualities which they have, right? That we and our children acquire those qualities of owning Muhammad and of Hazrat Qasim. Right? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Yeah. So this is what we find, in terms of from a behind the scene. If you look at the history, who were there, who were the responsible for killing of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and how even, for example, we find these illegitimate children coming from where? There's one woman plays that role, for that. Now although the time is very limited, let's briefly look at the lessons that we need to learn, right? And how we should basically carry ourselves, engage ourselves with our women folk, whether that be community sisters or family members, and how that should be and how they should be, right? Out there, it's the time which describes of those alayim or the signs of the zuhur. Amirul Mu'minin says a person will leave his house with iman outside, and then when he comes back, he has lost his iman. That sort of fitna is out there. And things that are out there, they are helping the taghut and the shaitan so that we lose iman. Bahjat, he says that we don't know that one step you may take towards the sin, you don't know the next step where you're taking. There's no guarantee of it. We take that step out, one na mahram, okay, two na mahram, three na mahram, that's how the iman becomes weak. The Prophet says that, looking at na mahram is an arrow of shaitan, right? So basically there's things that, we need to learn as men, right? And also you have the element of the sisters playing that role as well. See what happened in Karbala. We find that if women is not respected, they lose their respect, they lose their value, and they are misused, Karbala will happen. So that means we have to respect women. We have to give them that freedom, that space, that respect, that honor. They are equal in terms of rights. Men and women are equal. In spirituality as well. As we said, it's a test. Many a times we don't understand why they are saying certain things in a certain way. And we react. If that reaction is controlled, maybe after a bit you understand that, oh, that's what she meant. Sometimes we quickly react. To take that break. We don't need to react quickly. Just wait and watch. Because man, I'm supposed to be the one who should be controlling. How can you say this? How can she say that? We quickly say, Baba, wait. Maybe she meant something else. There could be some misunderstanding. Because sometimes they think in a different way, we think in a different way. Right? So we should not be quick. We should not jump the gun. Sometimes we are too quick. It's a test, so we got to be, thinking about the question and answering it, not quickly answering it, right? So respect is very important. When man starts to respect the woman, because if the disrespect is there, Karbala happens, and that's what we have seen. Women were used, abused, disrespected, as the time of Jahiliyyah, how it was. That's how it has become, and all haqq, batil, everything gets the way it does, right? So it's very important that we have that for our mothers, for our sisters, for our wives, for our community sisters, right? And listening to them, what they have to suggest, taking their suggestion on board. Sometimes, men tend to use that, say, oh, okay, if your wife says to buy red carpet, you should go buy black carpet. No, do the opposite. They use hadith and riwayat for that. No, it's not the case, right? They use, for example, some of the quotes from Amirul Mu'minin. That's how he talked about women, so on and so forth. But that's categorical. That's like at a given particular time he has mentioned those things. On the other hand, he has mentioned so many things as well in regards to women that needs to be looked at, right? Do exactly the opposite what your wife says. You should not be under control of the woman. These things are there that we need to kind of be careful about, right? So that respect is very important, and listening to them and taking their advice on board is also important, right? What happened? It was Sayyidah Zainab who said, "Oh, Sajjad, we would like to do Karbala before." She was a woman. Sajjad, we haven't done a majlis, we want to do a majlis. Right? It was a woman. In that, right? It doesn't, she is also a woman, and my mother and my sister, my wife, is also a woman. If that was the case, then what? Right? Not listening. Our aunts, our Khale, our Amme, they are all women as well. So it's very important that we have this understanding. Like for example, Jawad Amali says that, it's on YouTube as well. I'm quoting him because I don't want to get in trouble. He says in Hausa, the milak, the criteria is not really Quran or Sunnah as such. It's the assumptions of the scholars in regards to Quran or in regards to Hadith. He says, why a marja is not a woman? These things are there. Why women cannot lead prayers? Is it haram? From a fiqh point of view, it's not haram. Right? The mujtahideen, they have practiced caution, ihtiyat, wajib. Maybe some mujtahid come in 15 years from now and say, no, they can lead prayers. So are we going to be like, what's that? No. Right? So these are very important things that we really need to, consider, look at it. Right? Now, from one side, these things are there, and from the other side as well, that we need to be, giving our full to our sisters, to our family, to our women, rather than outside. The attraction is there a lot. I have dealt with a lot of people, couples getting divorced, so on and so forth, because of what they see outside. Right? So this means that our woman needs to be on guard as well. They go to the gym, our woman should go to the gym. They take care of their health, we should. This is all Islamic. They should take care of their health. Right? They need to be clean. They need to, dress themselves up. Right? They need to wear good clothes. They need all of these things, they have to do that. From an Islamic point of view, it is wajib on man to pay for the, makeup and powder and perfume and, what they do, nails, I don't know what do you call it, whatever, it's on man to give that, right? Then you shouldn't be complaining, when you go outside, it's something else, but when it comes home, it's like, what is this, right? No. So this means that they also need to do that. And you should be encouraging for them to do that. Buy a membership for your wife, for a gym. They can put on a hijab, they can they can go for it. And it's very much needed for them. It's this depressing environment out there and what's going on. They need to come out. They need to go out. Right? They need to exercise, maintain their health. It's very important. Right? So these are practical things that we really need to do and consider. Giving them that, and then they will be that supportive as well. And they also have to be on guard as well by taking care of themselves. Right? Yes, these are practical things that we need to take on board. I have taken too much of your time, and tonight being the first night and the night of Tuesday as well, where we do tawassul to Ahl Bayt alayhimus salam, and also a night of shahadat of Fatimatul Masuma Salamullah alayha, just zikr musibat, and also these are the very important days of the returning of Ahl Bayt alayhimus salam to Medina as well. They returned from Karbala to Medina as well. In regards to the martyrdom of Hazrat Masuma, she is the source of guidance. The Hausa is in Qom. We always, whenever we used to go to Qom, and whenever the students from here, I advise them, everything is Hazrat Masuma. She is the one, whatever you want. Success is with her. Right? Hausa's success is because of her. Right? because she was aware of the wilayat and imamat. The same way as Hazrat Zainab couldn't stay without Imam Hussain, Hazrat Masuma couldn't stay in Medina without Imam Raza alayhi salam. They forced Imam Raza to come to Khurasan, and she couldn't stay. She never got married either because of her spiritual caliber. There wasn't anybody, a kuf, for her to get married, right? And she was the blood sister of Imam Raza alayhi salam. One day, somebody came to ask the seventh Imam a question. On the way, she was just a little girl, so she answered that question. And Imam asked, "Has this been answered?" He said, "Who?" He says, "Fatima did." He says, "Exactly, this is the same answer," although she was a little girl, right? Because she was aware of that nur of wilayat, and she left for Khurasan. And as you know, the Bani Abbas, right? As she was passing by Saweh, which is a village near Qom, she was attacked by people, by the soldiers, by the enemies, by the Nasibis, and 40 odd men were killed as her caravan was attacked, and she felt that pain and sorrow, and she took refuge in a mosque, in a place where still that place is known as a ziyaratgah in Qom. If you go, inshallah, we all go there. And then they say they poisoned her. She was poisoned there. And as according to the prophecies of the sixth Imam, the hadith which I recited, she passed away in Qom. And as she was a masuma, categorically speaking, not in the 14 masumin, but in terms of that wilayah, just same as Hazrat Zainab, Salamullah alayha, she was masum as well. Abul Fazl Abbas was masum as well. They say that they wanted to bury, right? And namaz on a salat on a masum is by a masum. The same way as the fourth Imam recited on, Siddiqa Soghra, Zainab Kubra. The same way they said that somebody appeared on a horse, and it was Imam Raza alayhi salam who came, who recited, and who put Hazrat Masuma in the grave. So it's that thirst of wilayat and love and ishq of wilayat which brought Hazrat Masuma salamullah alayha, and she faced so much pain in that, separation from that. And this pain of separation was also suffered by Zainab salamullah alayha and Banin salamullah alayha. When Bashir comes in Medina and he says that Hussein have been martyred and killed, then this lady moves forward. What did you just say? Repeat, O Bashir. He said, Hussein have been martyred. I said, it's not possible. And then he says the same thing again and says, finally she asks, what happened to my son Abbas? Where was he? And then he recites the mercy of Abul Fazl, that how Abul Fazl went on the Furat to fetch water, and how he was returning back, and how his first hand was severed, and he holds the water skin in his left hand, how his left hand was severed, and he holds this water skin in his mouth. And when he holds this water skin in his mouth, there's a beautiful poetry by Agha Sarosh. He said, Abul Fazl Abbas did not feel the pain when his hands were severed, but when that arrow hit the water skin and water came out, that is the time when Abbas felt the pain, and he looks towards the heaven, and the heaven echoes the voice that, oh Abul Fazl, you will be Babul Hawahij. That's why there is no amal in Karbala, but we say, Ya Kashif al-Karb an Wajhil Hussein, Ikshif Karbi bihaqqi haqiq al-Hussein. Have you ever seen a tawassul to a masum like this, to an imam like this? We have tawassul to Siddiqa Kubra, to Fatima, to Zaya Fatima, Aghisini, we recite. But when it comes to Abbas, what do we say? We say, Ya Kashif al-Karb an Wajhil Hussein. Oh, the one by whom the sorrows and difficulties of Hussein vanishes. Ikshif Karbi, oh, get rid of my sorrows, O Abbas. For who? For the sake of Hussein, who was the master of Abbas. When Abbas falls from the steed on his mouth because he has no hands to support, he calls his master, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Oh my master, come to my aid. Here Hussein said, my back is broken. And he reaches, as he's about to reach, he picks up something. Everybody is saying, what Hussein is speaking? Hussein is speaking with the hand of Abul Fazl Abbas. That's why you find these different places of ziyarat in Karbala, where the hand of Abul Fazl Abbas was severed. As we know that he is buried right there at the Furat. Imam Hussain left him there. So by the time he reaches Furat, you could see the different points where you find the ziyarat place of his hand where it was severed. So he finally reaches, he's with no hands, and Imam Hussain reaches there, put the head of Abbas in the lap. Abbas moves the head. He said, why are you doing this, O Abbas? He said, I'm looking at the future, that in the plain of Karbala you will be alone. Nobody will be there to take you. He says, Hussain says, oh Abbas, tell me, what is your last will? He says, don't take my body in the Qiyam. I have promised the children that I will bring water. Please don't take my body there, leave me here. And he says, when I came in this world, I did not open my eyes till I saw you. So there's this arrow stuck in my eyes and there's blood. Can you please take this arrow out and clean my eyes so that I could see you when I'm leaving this world? Then Hussain says, I have few things that I want you to do before you leave, O Abbas. All your life you called me master. Abul Fazl Abbas always called Imam Hussain. Although he was a brother, he called his master. That's how the mother taught him. Al-Banin said, my children are the slaves of Zahra's children. So here, O Abbas, you have always called me master. I would love to hear that you call me brother, because it's that love. So here, Abbas said, recited 3 times, oh my brother, oh my brother, oh my brother, and his soul departed, and he was left there in Furat. Only the alam of Abbas was taken. They came out lamenting and crying, wa Abbasa, wa Abbasa. Allah lanatullah ala qawm al-zalimin sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayyamun qalibin yanqalibun bifatimata wa abiha wa baliha wa baniha wa sirr al-mustawdi' fiha بباب الحوائج أبو الفضل العباس عليه السلام. يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك يا قاضي الحاجات يا كافي المهمات إنك على كل شيء قدير. ماتم حسين يا حسين 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 حسين
जबरदस्त से चुनी मैं सदा देती रही तू ना आया गाजी जबरदस्त से चुनी मैं सदा देती रही तू ना आया गाजी आले जबरदस्त से चुनी मैं सदा देती रही हमको पानी ना मिले तेरी खुशबू तो रहे तेरे बाजू ना कटे चाहे मशकी जाच दे मगर हो ना सका तेरे बाजू है जुदा मुझ पे है तशना लबी तू ना आया गाजी जबरदस्त से चुनी मैं सदा देती रही तू ना आया धूप में धूता शजर तुझसे आबाद था घर है बरहना मेरा सर क्या नहीं तुझको खबर ए अलमदार वफा इस बहन को खुदा دارس کی بری تو نایا غازی جب رضا سر سے چھنی صدا دیتی رہی آ گئی شام علم لٹ گئے اہل حرم ریت پر جلتی ہوئی ہو گیا تند عالم پرسہ دینے کے لیے مجھ سے ملنے کے لیے آ گئے بابانی سنایا غازی قبر دا سر سے چنی صدا دیتی رہی سنایا غازی قید خانے میں قضا جب سکینہ کو میں نے ہائی دیکھے کنتے کا کفن بچی دفنائی گئی اس گھڑی نام تیرا صورت ناد علی بس میں دہراتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی یا حسین
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا برباد ہوئی میں برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں زینب کو نراسایا محرم کا مہینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں ایک دن تھا اس شہر کی میں کرتی تھی شاہی اور آج تباہی اور آج تباہی بے غسل پڑا مہر نبوت کا نگینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں کس لاش پہ روؤں کس چھوڑوں میں برادر لاشیں ہیں 72 لاشیں ہیں 72 حد یہ ہے کہ رونے کی اجازت بھی ملی نہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں اصغر کا
گلا بھائی کا سر سینہ اکبر سب گوہر چادر سب گوہر چادر اس دشت میں لوٹا گیا زینب کا خزینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں مائیں بھی نہ پہچان سکیں بچوں کے چہرے بکھرے ہوئے سہرے بکھرے ہوئے سہرے ہے خون کے دریا میں غریبوں کا سفینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی برباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں ایک آگ ہے خیموں میں قیامت کا سما ہے غازی تو کہاں ہے غازی تو کہاں ہے دیکھو تو ردا چھین گیا شمر کمینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں چادر چھینی درے لیے اب ظلم نہ ڈھاؤ بابا سے ملاؤ بابا سے ملاؤ نیزے کے تلے بیٹھ کے روتی ہے سکینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین وہ عابد بیمار تھا وہ عابد بیمار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا اور شام کا بازار تھا اور شام کا بازار تھا اور مصطفیٰ کی بیٹیاں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین بر محمد والے محمد بلند الصلوات
السلام عليك يا نبي الله السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا حبيب الله السلام عليك يا حجة الله السلام عليك يا باعث الهدى السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله السلام عليك ابن رسول الله السلام عليك ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين السلام عليك ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء السلام عليك يا معين ضعفاء الفقراء السلام عليك يا مغيث الشية والزوار في يوم الجزاء السلام عليك يا أنيس النفوس السلام عليك أيها المدفون بأرض توس السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا قائم الكفر والطغيان. السلام عليك يا دافع الظلم والعدوان. أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك واجعلنا من انصارك وعوانك جميع رحمة الله وبركاته. ما صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
اللهم كل وليك حجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آله في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزقك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
دار هيدري